The virus activated just as Zixtal prepared to fire his final killing shot. Across the entire Zephyrian Armada, computer systems began receiving false information. Ship sensors started showing enemy contacts where friendly vessels should be. Navigation computers reported impossible stellar positions. Weapon targeting systems lost track of their intended targets. Commander Zixtal felt his ship shudder as multiple system alerts flashed across his control panel. His targeting computer was showing 3 different locations for Jake's fighter. His navigation system claimed they were in a completely different star system. His communication array was receiving distress calls from ships that appeared to be under attack. Jake watched through his cockpit as the alien fleet began to react to the chaos. Ships that had been perfectly positioned started moving erratically. Some powered up their defensive shields as if expecting an attack. Others began charging weapons and pointing them at nearby Allied vessels. Admiral Kethvar stood on his command bridge in growing confusion and anger. His tactical displays were showing impossible things. According to his sensors, there were now over 1,000 enemy ships surrounding his fleet. His communication officers were receiving reports of battles that could not be happening. The quantum network that had been the Zephyrians' greatest strength was now spreading. Panic and confusion throughout their entire armada. Every false sensor reading was shared instantly with hundreds of other ships. Every corrupted message was transmitted across the fleet at the speed of light. Dr. Martinez watched the chaos unfold from her science station on the Defiance. The virus was working even better than Jake had hoped. The alien ships were not just confused, they were becoming paranoid and suspicious of each other. Some vessels were demanding identification codes from their own allies. Jake seized the moment of maximum confusion to broadcast a message on all Zephyrian communication channels. But this was not just any message. Using command codes that the virus had stolen from their network, Jake transmitted what appeared to be orders from Admiral Kethvar himself. The false message ordered all ships to retreat immediately to avoid a massive human ambush. It claimed that enemy fleets were approaching from multiple directions and that staying to fight would result in total destruction. The message used Kethvar's own command style and security codes, making it appear completely authentic. Amy Parker had helped Jake prepare this deceptive transmission. She had studied hours of intercepted Zephyrian communications to make the false orders sound convincing. Every phrase and technical term was chosen to match how the alien admiral normally spoke to his fleet. The effect was immediate and devastating. Ships throughout the Armada began receiving what they believed were direct orders from their supreme commander. Combined with the false sensor data showing massive enemy forces, the orders seemed completely logical. Zixtal found himself unable to complete his attack on Jake's fighter. His weapon systems were malfunctioning and his sensors were providing contradictory information. Worse yet, he was receiving orders that appeared to come from Admiral Kethvar telling him to retreat immediately. The alien pilot was torn between completing his duel and following what seemed to be direct commands from his leader. His warrior honor demanded that he finish the combat, but his military training required him to obey orders from his superior. Ben Cooper watched in amazement as the mighty Zephyrian Armada began to fall apart. Ships were breaking formation and heading in different directions. Some were following the false retreat orders while others were trying to attack enemies that did not exist. The perfect coordination that had made them so dangerous was completely destroyed. Carlos Rivera monitored the alien communication channels and reported that the confusion was getting worse. Ships were demanding confirmation of orders that other ships claimed they never sent. Commanders were accusing each other of cowardice and betrayal. The virus had turned their own communication system into a weapon against them. Admiral Kethvar realized that something was terribly wrong, but he could not understand what was happening. His own command codes were being used to send orders he had never given. His sensor displays showed enemy fleets that his intelligence officers insisted could not exist. His perfectly trained fleet was dissolving into chaos. Jake continued to fly evasive maneuvers while Zixtal struggled with his malfunctioning systems. The alien pilot was receiving conflicting orders and sensor data that made no sense. His ship's computer was telling him to retreat while his warrior instincts told him to fight. The psychological warfare was complete. The Zephyrians had built their entire military strategy around overwhelming force and perfect coordination. When that coordination was destroyed, they had no backup plan. They had never faced an enemy who could turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Throughout the Armada, individual ship commanders were making their own decisions about what to do. Some believed the retreat orders and began heading for the edge of the system. Others thought they were under attack and started firing at whatever their sensors told them were enemy ships. A few tried to contact Admiral Kethvar directly, but found only more confusion and conflicting information. Jake broadcast another message this time, speaking as himself, rather than pretending to be Kethvar. He offered safe passage to any Zephyrian ship that left the system immediately. He claimed that human reinforcements were already arriving and that continued fighting would only result in unnecessary deaths. This message added to the confusion because it seemed to confirm the false intelligence the aliens were receiving. If the human commander was confident enough to offer terms, then perhaps the sensor readings showing massive enemy fleets were accurate after all. Zixtal made his final decision. Faced with malfunctioning equipment, contradictory orders, and what appeared to be an impossible tactical situation, he chose to follow his training. He signaled Jake that he was withdrawing from the duel and began flying back toward his fleet. As he flew away, Zixtal performed a traditional warrior salute that showed respect for a worthy opponent. He had been defeated not by superior weapons or flying skill, but by something he had never encountered before. The humans had somehow turned the Zephyrians' own technology against them. One by one, the ships of the mighty Armada began jumping to hyperspace. Some left in organized groups while others departed individually. Within an hour, the space around the Defiance was empty except for the debris and energy signatures left behind by 300 departing warships. Jake flew the damaged Falcon back to his ship where his crew was waiting with expressions of amazement and relief. They had faced impossible odds and won not through superior firepower, but through superior thinking and planning. Amy Parker asked Jake how he had known the plan would work. Jake smiled and looked out at the stars where other human colonies would now be safe from the Zephyrian threat. He told his crew that sometimes the greatest victories came not from being stronger than your enemy, but from understanding them better than they understood themselves. The Battle of Kepler Station became legendary throughout human space. It proved that even when outnumbered and outgunned, human creativity and unconventional thinking could overcome any challenge. And somewhere in the depths of space, Admiral Kethvar would spend years trying to figure out how one human had defeated his entire armada without firing a single shot in anger. Jake flew the Falcon into the empty space between the two fleets. The area was huge and dark, with only distant stars providing light. Behind him, the Defiance looked like a tiny dot. Ahead of him, the Zephyrian Armada spread across space like a wall of metal and death. Commander Zixtal's fighter Death's Edge emerged from the alien formation. The ship was twice the size of the Falcon and covered in weapon pods. Its hull was black as night and shaped like a blade. Jake could see plasma energy building up in its cannons as it moved closer. The alien pilot spoke over the communication channel. His voice was cold and confident. Zixtal told Jake that this battle would be quick and merciful. He said humans were weak creatures who did not belong in space. He promised to make Jake's death fast so his crew would not have to watch him suffer. Jake did not reply with words. Instead, he began flying in what looked like random patterns. To everyone watching, it appeared that Jake was panicking. His ship moved left, then right, then up, then down with no clear purpose. The movements looked desperate and confused, but Jake was not panicking. Every movement of his ship was carefully planned. Each turn and dive was sending a coded message back to his crew on the Defiance. Jake was using a communication system that no one else would recognize. It was based on old Earth naval signal flags but adapted for space combat. Amy Parker watched Jake's ship from the bridge and translated his movements. She wrote down numbers and letters as his ship danced through space. To anyone else, it looked like random flying, but Amy knew Jake was spelling out instructions for the crew. The first message told Dr. Martinez to begin scanning the Zephyrian communication network. The second message told Carlos Rivera to prepare the ship's computer systems for data upload. The third message told Ben Cooper to monitor all enemy ship positions and watch for any changes. Zixtal was enjoying the hunt. He could see that the human pilot was afraid and flying without skill. The alien commander decided to play with his prey before killing it. He fired warning shots past the Falcon to scare Jake even more. Jake used these attacks as opportunities to send more coded messages. Each time he dodged Zixtal's weapons, he moved his ship in specific patterns. His crew received instructions to begin the most dangerous part of their plan. They were going to try to hack into the alien quantum network. Dr. Martinez worked frantically at her science station. She had been studying the Zephyrian signals since the battle began. The alien communication system was incredibly complex, but Lisa was beginning to understand how it worked. The network used quantum entanglement to connect all ships instantly across vast distances. This technology was far more advanced than anything humans had developed. But Lisa noticed something interesting about how the aliens used it. They had built their system to be completely secure from outside attack. They were so confident in their technology that they had not considered the possibility of someone breaking in during a formal duel. The aliens believed their honor code would protect them. No warrior race would try to cheat during single combat. This assumption was their weakness because humans did not always follow the same rules as other species. Jake continued his apparent panic flight while Zixtal closed in for the kill. The alien pilot was taking his time now. He wanted to show his Armada how easily he could defeat the best human pilot. He fired more shots that barely missed the Falcon. Each near miss gave Jake another chance to signal his crew. His ship movements told them that he needed more time. The network hack was taking longer than expected. Jake had to keep Zixtal interested without getting killed. Carlos Rivera was working to modify their ship's communication array. He needed to create a connection that could penetrate the alien quantum network without being detected. This required rebuilding several systems while the ship was in combat. Carlos had never attempted anything this dangerous before. Ben Cooper watched the enemy fleet through his tactical display. All 300 ships were focused on the duel. Their weapons were powered down and their defensive screens were at minimum levels. The aliens were completely confident that nothing could threaten them during this formal combat. Jake allowed Zixtal to score a few minor hits on the Falcon. The damage was not serious, but it made sparks fly and alarms sound. To the watching fleets, it looked like Jake was losing badly. This was exactly what Jake wanted them to think. The alien pilot became more aggressive as he sensed victory. He moved his ship closer to the Falcon and began using more powerful weapons. Energy beams cut through space all around Jake's fighter. The battle looked like it would end soon, but in the depths of space, invisible signals were flowing between the human ship and the alien network. Dr. Martinez had found a way to connect to their system during the confusion of combat. The aliens were so focused on the duel that their security protocols were relaxed. Jake received a signal from Amy telling him the hack was working. His crew had successfully penetrated the Zephyrian communication network. Now came the most dangerous part of the plan. They needed to upload something into the alien system without being detected. Jake had prepared a special computer virus before the battle. It was not designed to destroy alien ships or steal their secrets. Instead, it was designed to create confusion and fear. The virus would make the aliens think they were seeing things that were not really there. Zixtal fired his most powerful weapon at the Falcon. The plasma beam barely missed Jake's ship and lit up space with brilliant energy. Jake used this moment to signal his crew that they should begin the final upload. Everything depended on the next few minutes. The virus began flowing into the Zephyrian network like poison entering a bloodstream. It was small and clever, and designed to hide among normal communication signals. The aliens would not notice it until it was too late to stop. Jake prepared for the most dangerous part of his deception. He had to make his defeat look real while giving his crew time to complete their mission. Zixtal was moving in for the killing shot, and Jake had to time everything perfectly. The fate of humanity now depended on a computer virus and one human pilot's ability to fool an entire alien armada. Dr. Martinez stared at her computer screen as streams of alien data flowed past her eyes. The Zephyrian quantum network was more complex than anything she had ever seen. Each signal contained layers of information that were encrypted and compressed in ways that human science barely understood. But Lisa was not trying to understand their technology. She was looking for something much simpler. Every communication system had basic security protocols that identified friendly ships and enemy ships. These protocols were usually buried deep in the code, but they followed logical patterns. Jake's fighter continued its desperate dance with Death's Edge while Lisa worked. Every few seconds she received coded signals from Jake telling her to hurry. Zixtal was getting more aggressive and the duel could not last much longer. The virus upload had to be completed soon or everything would fail. Carlos Rivera was running diagnostics on their modified communication array. The system was working, but it was generating a lot of heat. If the aliens detected the unusual energy signature from the Defiance, they would realize something was wrong. Carlos had to balance power levels carefully to avoid detection. Amy Parker was coordinating between all the different parts of Jake's plan. She translated his flight signals into instructions for the crew. She monitored alien communications to make sure they had not discovered the hack. She also prepared the final transmission that would complete their deception. Ben Cooper watched the enemy fleet formation through his tactical display. The alien ships remained in perfect position with all attention focused on the duel. But Ben noticed something interesting. The ships were not just watching passively. They were sharing data about the combat through their quantum network. This constant data sharing was exactly what Jake had hoped for. The virus would spread faster if the aliens were actively communicating with each other. Every ship that received combat data would also receive a copy of the malicious code. Jake allowed Zixtal to damage his ship more seriously this time. Smoke poured from the Falcon's engines and several warning lights flashed red on his control panel. The damage was real but not critical. Jake needed to sell the illusion that he was losing without actually destroying his ship. The alien pilot sensed that victory was near. Zixtal began broadcasting messages to his fleet about how easily he was defeating the human champion. He described Jake's flying as clumsy and desperate. He promised that the battle would end within minutes. These boastful transmissions helped spread the virus even faster. Every message that Zixtal sent carried hidden code that infected more ships in the Armada. The aliens' own communication habits were being used against them. Dr. Martinez finally found what she had been looking for. Deep in the alien network protocols, she discovered the identification codes that marked ships as friendly or hostile. These codes were automatically checked thousands of times per second to prevent ships from attacking each other by mistake. The virus Jake had created was designed to corrupt these identification codes. It would make alien ships appear as enemies to each other on their sensor displays. The effect would not happen immediately. The virus needed time to spread through the entire network before it activated. Jake signaled that he needed more time. The virus was uploading, but the process was slower than expected. The alien quantum network had security features that were slowing down the data transfer. Lisa estimated they needed at least 5 more minutes to complete the upload. Zixtal was growing impatient. He had been toying with the human pilot for entertainment, but the battle was taking too long. His commander, Admiral Kethvar, was watching and expecting a quick victory. Zixtal decided to end the duel with his next attack. The alien pilot charged his most powerful weapon system. The plasma cannons on Death's Edge began glowing with deadly energy. This weapon could vaporize the Falcon instantly if it hit. Jake would have to use all his skill to avoid being killed while the upload completed. Amy received a priority signal from Dr. Martinez. The virus upload was at 80% completion. They needed just 2 more minutes. Amy passed this information to Jake using their coded communication system. Jake knew he was running out of time and options. Zixtal's next attack would be meant to kill, not just disable. Jake had to find a way to survive the assault while keeping the alien pilot interested enough to continue the duel. He decided to try something desperate. Jake turned his ship directly toward Death's Edge as if he was planning a suicide attack. This surprised Zixtal, who had expected the human to try to escape. The alien pilot was forced to change his attack plan to deal with this new threat. The 2 ships raced toward each other on a collision course. Zixtal fired his weapons, but Jake's unexpected maneuver threw off his aim. The plasma beams missed the Falcon by mere meters. Jake pulled his ship away at the last second, avoiding the crash. This bold move bought Jake the time he needed. Dr. Martinez reported that the virus upload was now at 95%. Just a few more seconds and the malicious code would be completely installed in the alien network. Ben Cooper noticed something alarming on his tactical display. Several alien ships were starting to move out of their formation positions. They seemed to be responding to some kind of threat that he could not detect. Ben wondered if the aliens had discovered their hacking attempt, but the ship movements were actually caused by the virus beginning to take effect. Random ships in the Armada were starting to receive false sensor data. They thought they detected enemy vessels where none existed. The confusion was spreading through the fleet like a disease. Admiral Kethvar was becoming concerned about the length of the duel. His champion should have defeated the human pilot quickly and easily. The fact that the battle was continuing suggested that either Zixtal was playing games or the human was more skilled than expected. Jake received the final signal from his crew. The virus upload was complete. The malicious code was now installed throughout the entire Zephyrian communication network. In a few more minutes, it would activate and begin causing chaos among the enemy fleet. Now Jake had to survive long enough to see his plan work. Zixtal was preparing for one final devastating attack. The alien pilot had grown tired of the game and wanted to end the duel immediately. Death's Edge moved into position for a killing shot. Jake prepared to implement the final phase of his deception. Everything depended on perfect timing and a lot of luck. If his calculations were wrong, both he and his crew would be dead within minutes. The virus was spreading silently through 300 alien warships like a hidden poison waiting to strike. Jake looked at the communication screen and took a deep breath. He knew that the words he spoke in the next few minutes would decide if his crew lived or died. The alien armada was waiting for his surrender, but Jake had a different plan. He told Amy to open the channel to Admiral Kethvar. The alien commander appeared on the main screen. Kethvar was tall and covered in dark blue scales. His eyes were yellow and cold like a snake. He wore armor that looked like it was made from black metal, and his voice sounded like thunder when he spoke. Kethvar demanded that Jake surrender his ship immediately. He said the humans had no chance against his mighty armada. He told Jake that resistance was foolish and that death was certain if they tried to fight. But Jake did not surrender. Instead, he did something that surprised everyone, including his own crew. He challenged Admiral Kethvar to single combat. Jake said that a great warrior like Kethvar should not need 300 ships to defeat one small human vessel. He asked where the honor was in such an unfair battle. Jake had studied the Zephyrian culture for months before this mission. He knew they valued personal courage above everything else. They believed that true warriors should face their enemies in fair combat. A leader who hid behind superior numbers would be seen as weak and cowardly by his own people. Admiral Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see that the challenge had caught him off guard. The alien commander had expected begging or surrender, but not this. Jake was using Kethvar's own pride against him. Jake continued speaking. He said that if Kethvar was truly the greatest warrior in the galaxy, then he should prove it in single combat. Ship against ship with the entire armada watching. If the humans won, then the alien fleet would leave this sector forever. If the aliens won, then Earth would surrender without another fight. The crew of the Defiance watched their captain with amazement. They could not believe he was bargaining with 300 enemy ships as if he held all the power. But Jake knew exactly what he was doing. He was playing a game of psychology and pride. Kethvar was thinking about the challenge. Jake could see the alien commander was interested. Fighting wars had become too easy for Kethvar. He had grown bored with crushing weak enemies who could not fight back. The idea of a real challenge excited him, even though he knew he would win easily. While the aliens discussed the challenge, Jake turned to his crew and gave them quiet orders. Ben Cooper began scanning the enemy fleet formation more carefully. Dr. Lisa Martinez started analyzing the alien communication signals. Carlos Rivera prepared the ship systems for whatever was coming next. Jake walked over to Amy's station and whispered instructions that only she could hear. He told her to watch for specific signals during any combat that might happen. She did not understand yet, but she nodded and prepared to follow his orders exactly. Dr. Martinez made an important discovery while studying the alien signals. The Zephyrian ships were all connected through a quantum communication network. This allowed them to coordinate their attacks perfectly. Every ship knew what every other ship was doing at all times. It was like having one mind controlling 300 bodies. Jake realized this information was very important. The network was the source of the enemy's strength, but it might also be their weakness. If someone could get inside that network, they might be able to cause problems for the entire fleet. Admiral Kethvar finally gave his answer. He accepted Jake's challenge, but with conditions. The duel would take place in the empty space between the two forces. Both sides would choose their best pilot and their best ship. The winner would decide the fate of both fleets. Jake agreed immediately. He knew the aliens expected him to choose his best pilot, but Jake had a different plan. He told Kethvar that he would pilot the combat ship himself. This surprised the alien commander, who had expected Jake to stay safely on his bridge. The crew of the Defiance was shocked. They could not believe their captain was going to fight personally against the best warrior pilot in the Zephyrian fleet. Amy asked Jake if he was sure about this decision. Ben Cooper offered to take his place. Carlos Rivera said the captain should stay with his ship, but Jake was determined. He explained that this was not really about winning a single ship battle. The real battle would be fought with information and deception. While everyone was watching the combat, he and his crew would be working on a much bigger plan. Jake went to the hangar bay where their experimental fighter ship was waiting. The ship was called the Falcon, and it was fast and maneuverable but lightly armed. Against a Zephyrian combat ship, it would be like a mouse fighting a tiger. But Jake was not planning to win through firepower. Dr. Martinez came to the hangar and gave Jake a special communication device. It looked like a normal pilot headset, but it had been modified to work with their ship's computers. Jake would be able to send coded signals back to the Defiance while he was flying. Ben Cooper explained the enemy pilot they would be fighting. Commander Zixtal was the most feared warrior in the Zephyrian fleet. He had never lost a battle and had destroyed over 100 enemy ships. His fighter was called Death's Edge, and it was armed with plasma cannons that could cut through any armor. Jake climbed into the Falcon and started the engines. He felt the ship come alive around him as all systems powered up. The fighter was small but responsive. Every control was exactly where his hands expected to find it. Amy's voice came through the communication system. She told Jake that Admiral Kethvar had chosen his champion, and the combat was about to begin. The entire alien armada was moving into position to watch the battle. Every enemy ship was focusing on the space where the duel would take place. This was exactly what Jake wanted. While 300 alien ships watched two fighters dance in space, his crew would be working on something much more important. They would be trying to break into the quantum communication network that connected the entire enemy fleet. Jake flew the Falcon out of the hangar and into the darkness of space. Behind him, the Defiance looked small and fragile. Ahead of him, 300 alien warships waited like hungry predators, and somewhere among them, Death's Edge was preparing to hunt. The greatest deception in human history was about to begin. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the stars change color in the distance. The space around them had been quiet for 3 hours, but that peace was about to end forever. His ship, the UES Defiance, was alone in this part of space, and Jake knew they were being hunted. The communication panel started beeping with urgent signals. Amy Parker, his communication officer, looked up from her screen with wide eyes. She was young and had joined the crew only 6 months ago, but she was smart and quick to learn. Amy pressed a few buttons and the main screen showed what they all feared most. 300 alien ships appeared out of nowhere like ghosts becoming solid. They came from hyperspace in perfect formation, and each ship was twice the size of the Defiance. Jake had seen pictures of these ships before, but seeing them in person made his stomach feel heavy. The Zephyrian Armada had finally found them. The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. The 50 crew members on the Defiance were looking at certain death. Jake could see the fear in their eyes, but also something else. They still believed in him somehow. They still thought their captain might have a way out of this mess. Carlos Rivera, the chief engineer, spoke first. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. Carlos was a good man who had served on many ships before this one. He knew when a situation was hopeless, and this looked hopeless. Carlos told Jake that their weapons were not working at full power. The last battle had damaged many systems, and they had been running with broken parts for weeks. Their shields were weak, and their engines needed major repairs. Against one enemy ship they might have a chance, but against 300 ships they had no chance at all. The alien ships moved closer in their perfect formation. Jake watched them through the main screen and tried to count them all, but there were too many. Each ship had enough firepower to destroy a planet. Their weapons could turn rock into dust and metal into gas. The Zephyrians had used these ships to conquer 17 star systems, and they had never lost a battle. Ben Cooper, the tactical officer, was studying the enemy formation on his screen. Ben was quiet most of the time, but he was very good at his job. He understood how battles worked and how ships moved in space. Ben told Jake that the enemy ships were arranged in a classic attack pattern. The biggest ships were in the middle, and the smaller ships formed protective walls around them. Jake walked around the bridge and looked at each member of his crew. These people had followed him through many dangerous missions. They had trusted him when things looked bad before, and somehow he had always found a way to keep them alive. But this time was different. This time the odds were not just bad, they were impossible. Dr. Lisa Martinez looked up from her science station. She was the smartest person on the ship, and could figure out problems that no one else could solve. Lisa had been scanning the enemy ships, and what she found was not good news. The alien ships were connected to each other through some kind of special communication system. This meant they could work together perfectly like parts of one giant machine. Amy received another signal from the alien ships. She looked at Jake and waited for orders. The signal was demanding that they surrender right now. The aliens were giving them one chance to give up without a fight. After that, they would destroy the Defiance and everyone on it. Jake thought about the message. He knew that surrendering would not save his crew. The Zephyrians did not take prisoners. They killed everyone who fought against them, and they would kill everyone on his ship. But maybe he could use their demand to buy some time. He told Amy to send a reply, but not the reply the aliens expected. Jake was thinking about something he had learned in school about old Earth battles. Sometimes when an army was trapped, they could still win by being smarter than the enemy. Sometimes the smaller force could beat the larger force by using tricks and plans. The Zephyrian commander was called Admiral Kethvar. Jake had studied reports about this alien leader. Kethvar had been winning battles for 40 years. He was proud, and he believed that his way of fighting was the best way. He liked to crush his enemies with overwhelming force, and he enjoyed showing off his power. But Jake knew something about the Zephyrians that might help. They were warriors who believed in honor and personal combat. They respected strength and courage even in their enemies. Maybe Jake could use this against them. Jake told Amy to open a communication channel to the enemy flagship. He was going to try something that had never been tried before. He was going to challenge an entire armada to single combat. It was crazy, and it probably would not work, but it was better than just waiting to die. The crew looked at their captain with surprise and hope. They did not understand his plan yet, but they knew Jake always had a plan. Even when things looked impossible, he found a way to fight back. This time would have to be different, though. This time he would have to be more clever than he had ever been before. Jake stood in front of the main screen and prepared to make the most important speech of his life. He was about to bet everything on one desperate idea. If it worked, they might survive long enough to find a real solution. If it failed, they would all be dead in a few minutes. The alien ships continued moving closer, and their weapons began charging up with deadly energy. Time was running out, and Jake knew he had only one chance to save his crew and his ship.